Welcome, your Backup Plan tribe. And if you are new here, welcome. My name is Tina Ginn. I am an emergency preparedness coach and a developer and creator of Your Backup Plan app. And I'm also a best-selling author of In the Blink of an Eye. Yeah, just like that, your life can change in a split second. And I mean a blink of your eye. Probably as fast as a baseball comes in to a catcher in the major leagues. That's how fast something changes. You're sitting quietly in the doctor's office, and all of a sudden, the doctor says, you have cancer. Or you're sitting at the dinner table and you quickly have a stroke or a heart attack, and your life changes in a second, not even. Or a wildfire, or a hurricane, or a tornado, or an earthquake. Do we need to say more? There's so many things, and I'm so happy to have you guys here today. If you are new, please like, share, and subscribe down here in the bar. I'd love to have you come back and meet some of our great guests. We talk about real life stories on our show with really amazing guests all over the world and about their life-changing events, whether it was a tragedy or a trauma or an accident, whatever it might be. And today we actually have, well, I have to admit, it's my first show on fire. Yes. Surviving the Inferno, Jack Robertson's daughter's journey through burn recovery. Now, Jack is going to come on our show, and he has an amazing story of how his daughter survived and how she recovered. So stay tuned. We'll come up next.
In the blink of an eye, life can change dramatically. On our podcast, Talking Taboo with Tina, we delve into these life-altering events with celebrities, authors, and everyday people just like you. You'll also discover Your Backup Plan app, a life-organizing tool designed to prepare you for any unexpected circumstance. It's your safety net, taking the sting out of tragedy. Imagine a plan B that ensures your finances are safe, even in the worst-case scenario. But it doesn't end there. Join our vibrant Facebook group for free webinars on backup planning and secure your future today.
Welcome back. Well, we have a special guest. His name is Jack Robertson. Let me bring him in from Oklahoma. Welcome, Jack. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I can hardly wait for your story. Jack is a co-host a podcast as well, Kenyetta and Jack Save the World podcast. He also is a creator of a nonprofit group to help families of burn survivors with their hotel costs and probably a lot more, I'm sure. It's called the Mars Mission Foundation. His daughter was in a fire in 2022, and I'm so excited to find out, where did all of this start for you, Jack?
Okay, well, once again, thanks for having me on. I'll give a sort of a quick Cliff Note backstory. My wife and I have almost been married for 30 years. We met in high school. We had our first kid in high school. And then we had my son when I was in the Army. And then we had my daughter when, my youngest daughter, Em, when I got out of the Army a couple years. She was almost a 2000 baby, just a month and a half shy of that. And most of the story, we can fast forward to now. My son joined the Air Force. He was stationed in Colorado Springs. And my daughter, or Em, I don't know why I keep saying my daughter, but Em went to visit him, and she just loved it so much that she wanted to move up there. And he was like, well, I have a spare bedroom. You can move up here with me and live here with me. And their cousin, who's my son's best friend, was already living there as well. And so he's like, you might as well. And she moved in and became their sorority house mom, because she makes them clean the house, which for a couple of boys in their 20s. They need that.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And that's sort of
How it started.
how this started. Couple things about M. She has had severe asthma her entire life. She had sinus and nose issues, so she's had several surgeries on her nose. She was hospitalized for asthma 12 times. She had a kidney condition. So M grew up knowing sort of medical difficulties.
Yeah.
At the same time, she's like the girl version of me in terms of ADHD and stuff like that. And one of the things about her that we've always joked is that she doesn't dance to the beat of a different drummer because she's in her own instrument section altogether. Which is one of the things that I love about her.
Yeah.
So that being said, on my wife's birthday, February 24th, 2022, I was being a great husband and in here recording my podcast. And I could hear my wife on the phone as I was recording. And I thought, oh, yay, the kids called her and I don't have to call them to make them call her on her birthday.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I got done, walked, out of where I record, and my wife, Heather, was standing there on the phone, and I could tell something was wrong. And she just said, it's M. She's in the ER. And I just assumed she had another asthma attack.
Right.
And so she said, no, she was on fire. And I was just like, my heart sank. Because first of all, I'm like, how the heck did this happen?
Yeah.
And it freaked me out. And so what happened was she was making candles, something she has done. She's very crafty. And she put the scent in the candle wax and it exploded.
Oh my God.
And so that's sort of what caused her. Well, initially when it exploded, let me restart over. It caught fire. She put the lid on it because she thought it's like a grease fire. Put the lid on it, snuff it out. And so then she thought, well, it snowed today. I'm just going to grab this pot and go throw it in the snow. So when she picked up the pot and turned around, that's when it exploded. So it erupted like a volcano experiment, that you do in school. And when it did that, it caught her right arm, her forearm on fire, and then her thigh. But her thigh ended up with two types of burns because, as one would do if you're holding something that explodes, she dropped it. And so the wax then came out and went on her thigh.
No.
She was having the hot wax melt down while her thigh was also on fire.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And firemen across the country and the world should be proud. She immediately stopped, drop, and rolled. However, I don't know if it was just the type of porcelain tile or if it was because wax was involved. It lessened the fire, but it didn't go out 100%. And so her next thought was, I need to go out and dive in the snow. And so she got up, went out the back door, dove in the snow, like pushed her body down until the fire went out. And as she was laying there, she was about to pass out, but her dog Ellie came over and licked her in the face. And that kind of gave her a rush of adrenaline, and she got up. So she goes inside. Well, as she goes inside, their cousin had come upstairs because he heard the most horrible screaming sounds he'd ever seen in his entire life, or heard in his entire life. And he comes in, he gets up the stairs because it's a split level house. They live in Colorado Springs. And he just sees her with like content warning. All of the skin on her hand fell off onto the kitchen floor.
Oh my God.
And that's what he saw. And as would happen to anybody, if you just see that, he kind of froze. And I don't blame him at all. Most people would.
Yes.
And so M.
Because I think it takes a few seconds or minutes to even comprehend what you're looking at, right?
Yeah, and he had no idea what was going on. He just gets up there. There's fire coming out of a pot that fortunately landed bottom side down. her skin's plopping off, her clothes are burned, and he has no clue what had happened. And plus, it doesn't smell too great when that happens.
No.
And so he just did what most people would do and froze. And so it actually made M mad. And so she looked at him and she was like, well, one of us has to call the fire department. So she walks over to her phone, picks it up, calls 911, and she's on the phone with, the operator. And she's like, I need the fire department. I need the ambulance. This is what happened. This is my address. And so then the operator keeps trying to talk to her, and M is fine. I don't know why I find this funny. She's just like, yeah, I'm tired of talking to you because you just keep asking me the same stuff. I'll talk to you later. Bye. And she hung up on him. And so she turns to their cousin and says, you go stand outside, and when the fire department gets here, you let them in. And she just got a chair and stood at the top of the stairs. Fire department comes, IV, load her up in the ambulance. She goes to the ER. And then that's when my wife was talking to her, she was in the ER.
Oh, okay.
And so, of course, now our first thoughts are, holy cow, we have to get to Colorado Springs from Oklahoma City. But then it's like, well, we have to figure out work. We have to figure out someone to watch our dogs. And
you wonder how bad it really is, right?
Exactly. And in terms of watching the dogs, Tina saw my boy earlier. I have a Great Dane, and you just can't have somebody watch your Great Dane. That's a different kind of deal than a Chihuahua or a poodle.
Yeah.
Just because of the size. So we had to work out with that. So we weren't able to leave like the next day, which melted, it was devastating for us. So we drove out there with my wife's mother, because my wife decided that she was going to need her mom to be her mom while she was momming
the daughter. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we got there, and then that was a Thursday. On Monday, she had her skin graft surgeries. And the thing about burn recovery, first of all, when they show it on TV, it's not what it looks like beforehand. It's far worse. Second of all, your recovery from that is every bit as painful, if not more painful, than the actual incident. Oh. And once again, just let people know, you might want to skip the 15 seconds or whatever. When they do skin grafts, it's basically a cheese slicer. The thing where you get to go whoop, and it slices off the slice of cheese.
Oh, I see. So it slices off a thin layer of skin to put on.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
That's how they do it. And then they put it through a mesher because naturally it wants to shrink. So they mesh it so it doesn't shrink. And then the other part of that is they can't sew the skin graft in. It's just sort of put there. They take the old stuff out, they put the graft in, and it sits there. So they have to staple your bandages to you, not, like sew the thing. So your bandages are stapled throughout, covering that.
The areas.
Yeah. And all of that is painful. So now on top of recovering from the burn, all of your donor sites hurt. And her surgeon, it sounds weird, but he's like, you have enough area on your right leg that we can get all of your donor sites on that. So you only have one leg that's scarred. Because even your donor sites take quite a while to heal. Sort of, right. And they never look quite normal again. So he wanted her to just have one leg that was scarred, which is oddly satisfying. that was, part of the thought process. But when they did that, when she came out of recovery, for example, the skin on her forearm was on her right butt cheek. So she couldn't sit comfortably because she had that new wound on top of everything else. So she was just in a lot of pain, and the amount of pain meds that they give somebody in that situation is insane. I'm talking ketamine, fentanyl. It's the big stuff, and it was just taking the edge off.
Oh,
And I'm just sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, Keith Richards couldn't even handle that.
no.
And um, so she went through that, but she was not going to take it like, no, I want to get out of the hospital. And initially they thought she was going to be in for 30 days, and she got out 14 days later because
Wow.
she's like, I am going to do the things that I have to do, which means wound care, because skin grafts are an open wound for months on end afterwards.
Yeah.
And every day she'd have to go into the bathroom and cut off skin and clean everything. And that's a whole other set of pain that you have to go through. You know, she would take her prescription pain meds like an hour before. So when she did it,
It
she
wasn't
was
quite as bad.
quite as bad. Yeah.
Oh, dear.
And we were very lucky because we had family members that sort of came and we rotated. So I was there the day I had to leave to go back to Oklahoma. My sister and my wife's sister came and they spent a week. And the day they were coming back to Oklahoma, my mother-in-law flew back out there and stayed, I think it was like 10 days, something like that. And then the day she was leaving, my wife flew back out there, and then my wife flew back, and then I flew back out there for another week. So she had this period where she had people that were there to take care of her and help her get through this initial stage of being at home. But I know a lot of people don't necessarily have
that. No.
Yeah. And at first she'd have to drive back and forth from Colorado Springs to Denver once a week to go see the burn care team. And a lot of times her cousin drove her up there to do that. And then now she's starting her recovery. Well, I mean, since then she started her recovery, and it has involved a lot of therapy.
Yeah.
That tends to give you PTSD. And then she's had some physical things that she's got to overcome, but all burn survivors do. There are just certain things that you don't know. Grafted skin doesn't sweat, so you have thermoregulation issues because of that. And then grafted skin doesn't move like normal skin does. So when you walk, the grafted skin doesn't move. Yeah, and the old skin moves, and so it's constantly pulling and tugging and all of that. So right. So if you go and have to do a lot of walking or standing, right, you just get worn out so fast. So fast.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah, and just other stuff like when she came home the first 6 months, she was taking literally her doctors wanted her to take 5 multivitamins a day
to build her up,
because otherwise her body would leach from other parts of her body those important, vitamins that her body needed to heal.
Yeah.
And she had to eat like double her calorie count because once again, your body needs that to heal.
Yeah.
And so she went through that. And as part of her recovery, this sounds funny, she was supposed to go and have physical therapy on her hand because her hand had skin grafts and all of that. Well, she started playing her Nintendo Switch as soon as they took the bandages off. And she did it so much that she got full mobility just from playing video games.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, so she didn't need physical therapy on her hand. And then she also was supposed to have some on her leg, but as a teenager, Em was a Scottish Highland dancer. So every time she would stand up or stand, she would go through one of her Highland dances with her right leg. She would do the steps, and she ended up not needing the physical therapy from that.
Oh, good. Boy, she's a smart cookie.
Yeah. She's a great kid. And so she went through all of that sort of, recovering and, just dealing with that.
Did you want to put a picture up now or?
Yeah. Is it the present thing?
Yes.
Okay. Give me just a second. I can
play with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's amazing story because I can't imagine. Like when something happens, even if it's water or fire, I mean, it takes a while for your brain to comprehend and then know what to do. It's
yeah.
surprisingly, when you haven't seen it before. I mean, like if you're used to it, then you know what to do.
And of course now it's not. I'll have to keep looking. I don't know if you guys can still see me. For whatever
Yeah, I
reason, when I
can still
saved it,
see
didn't
you.
save it quite where I wanted to, I guess. But
That's okay.
um, she's still mostly M.
It's about a year and a half now, right?
Yeah, she ended up with a ton of phobias afterwards. She can't be around. She doesn't like say a campfire, a bonfire, or something like that. She doesn't. Um, she would not, absolutely would not cook anything on the stove. She didn't start doing that until this past September. And
Wow.
therapy helped. But, if you think about it, her accident happened because of
Fire.
the stove and the fire. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So that makes perfect sense that she would have phobias of the stove. And
Yeah.
her older sister bought her some, the gloves, oven mitts that go all the way up to her shoulders.
Oh,
is like a joke. Yeah, it was pretty funny. And so, well,
she could have used those before.
exactly.
Oh, geez. And
And
wax. Oh, it's so hot too. Oh, and it
yeah,
doesn't move, like
no, and it was
like a
just so
kettle boiling water and it pours on you. At least it goes off. But I mean, yeah, it still burns you, but wax stays there. Oh,
yeah. Well, I
goodness.
apologize. I'm not finding where I saved the photo. I
Oh,
apologize.
that's okay. That's all
But
right.
yeah, so the wax, it just sort of burned down and or melted sort of in there and created heat. So she ended up with two different type of burns. And the way
One from the surface burn and then one from
one
the
from the fire and then one from the
stain
heat from
on.
the wax going down. Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
And so
How's her
she ended
hand now?
her what?
Her hand, how is it now? Is
It's
it?
it does fine. Her arm healed. If you looked at most of her arm, the grafted area healed very, very well. Much better than the looks of her leg. And now she's going through laser skin surgeries. It's sort of like getting a tattoo removed,
Oh,
only
okay.
it's like a more powerful laser. So what happens when they do that is the laser goes through, they put it on the scarred skin and it breaks up the cells on the lower levels. And when they heal more normal. So over time, the grafted skin will start to smooth out and look more like normal skin. Um, but they don't have any idea how many it's going to take because it's just you have to have them until it looks better. But the good
Right.
news is that helps with the tugging, where the two connect.
Oh,
As
that must be
the
horrible.
Yeah, and so anytime you see a burn survivor, that person is just a badass.
Yeah.
To use that phrase, because they have been through some more pain than you can possibly um,
Like from building
understand.
fires and stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
they have fires on their head and their face and their back and all. Like I can't even imagine. Like you wouldn't even be able to lie there with
yeah,
because you're
yeah,
in it.
yeah. There, if there's a certain point where you're probably better off being in a medically induced coma than being up when you're recovering, because it is just
Yeah.
so painful. And like there was a time when she was in there right after her surgery where she was in all of this pain. She was having anxiety attacks. All the sounds of the ward, being on there, everything was just overwhelming her. And the only thing my wife and I could do to help her was sit there quietly. We couldn't even text somebody because the sound of our fingers hitting the phone screen was overwhelming for her. And that's
So your senses all heightened.
yeah, and as a parent, that was just so for us, it was like overwhelming and heartbreaking. And so a lot of times what my wife and I would do if it just got overwhelming is we would just sort of stand up and look out the window because we didn't want her to see how it was affecting us,
Yeah.
because we felt like we needed to be her anchor during that time. And
and it's
like for me,
overwhelming for you too.
yeah, and because I'm a Gen Xer, I grew up in the in the 80s, so I have seen many an action film where someone is on fire.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I created this scenario where she's action movie from the 80s running on fire like you would see, and I couldn't do anything to stop her. And I couldn't sleep because I just, as soon as I would fall asleep, I would have that dream, and then I would wake up, and I would have that dream, and then I would wake up. And so I ended up going to therapy afterwards because, well, one, I like to sleep, but
Yeah.
it was a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a lot. And I can't be the person she needed me to be for her if I wasn't getting the help I needed.
Right.
So,
absolutely. So you can help her. Yeah.
Yeah. And even though she lives in a different state, we still talk. We have a family chat that we're talking, and it affected all of us. It affected my wife in lots of ways. She still has, she can't be around like a bonfire or something like that. That bothers her.
Yeah.
My oldest daughter, it has affected her as well. But it's made my kids closer. They were close once they became adults. They were close. They got close because it's a 9-year gap between my oldest and M. But they are way, way closer. And well, one of the things, I should also go back in time. My oldest daughter, her mother-in-law gave her her airline miles, so she was actually able to fly out there that Friday. So M was not by herself. She had her sister there until we were able to get there.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, yeah. And then, of course, she lives with my son, and it's had a big effect on him. He was always protective of her, but he became kind of more protective of her.
Yeah, yeah.
And his job, he works for the Department of Defense. I don't know what he does.
Nobody knows.
Well, humble brag, he's actually not allowed to tell us.
No.
It sounds fake, but it's the honest to God truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he works overnight, and obviously you can't, go get food overnight. So he started doing those meal service kits. And so what he would do is on his day off, he would prep the whole week and freeze them. But because the smallest you can get is for 2 people, he would give her the other one so that she could microwave it and have real food that wasn't just, bagel bites cooked in the microwave or ramen noodles. Yeah. So she was at least getting 1 meal a day that was actual real food.
Well, that was nice.
Yes. Yeah. And he also had to clean up the kitchen afterwards. So that was something that I can't imagine how that affected him.
Yeah. Yeah, because she only had one hand.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, they did it, that next day, but
is there a time frame that they have to do it in?
Well, are you talking like for the skin grafts or whatever?
Yeah, like to get in and
they can do those multiple times because they don't always take the first time, and sometimes they have to go and do more. And then depending on your burn and how much your body's burned, sometimes they have to grow your skin. Since her accident, I've met several people that are also burn survivors, and this one friend of mine, they had to grow his skin, and so that takes a little bit. And so he had like cadaver skin for a while, and then when his skin grew to where they needed it, they would just redo the skin graft surgery with his own skin versus the cadaver skin.
And it goes better.
And as weird as it sounds now, they actually use tilapia skin, the fish.
Oh, really?
As a temporary use. And it sounds weird, and it looks funny. Pictures of it are funny. But, and so they do that. And if they need to, they go back and they can have to redo them if they have to.
So
We were
if they
lucky
use
all of ours took.
if you use the fish skin,
Mhm.
do they have to remove that and put the other one on
Yeah,
when it's
yeah,
ready? Oh,
yeah,
so it's all over again to
yeah,
oh God.
yeah, yeah. And then when you have to do your first wound care, that is incredibly painful. And um, just just the pain from that is probably as bad as when you were on fire, to be perfectly honest with
I
you.
found when I burnt my arm with boiling water, I found just the air at it just makes the pain worse.
Yeah,
So if you
yeah,
could keep it covered, I guess is
yep,
makes it a bit better, but oh, it's horrible.
yeah. And the bandaging they use, it's called like a silver skin that they use because that keeps the infections down and the microbes down, and they have to be changed and washed, and it's a lot to go through.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to keep the air off of it, I'm sure, because when you remove it, it must just the air must really just oh, I can feel
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. It's tough. And then so yeah, she's like I say, she's physically getting better. You know, she'll probably never be 100% how she was before, but she's getting there, and it's going to take a while. You know, sort of on the mental side of things,
Absolutely.
and she's still 95% her before the accident. But you're going to have issues after that. It would be weird if you didn't, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, I would think so.
I
Yeah, for
mean,
sure.
yeah, yeah. And so she's getting over stuff, and eventually she'll, get past it. And, she, some of the things that are sad to me is she doesn't like for people she doesn't know to touch her now because
Oh,
of the
that's
fear of
interesting.
getting getting infected or something like that. So she doesn't like to shake hands anymore. And if she does, she'll do it left-handed.
Yeah,
And so it's just stuff like that
that your
from a
whole life changes.
from a parent standpoint, it just kind of makes you sad that she's slightly not her,
Yes.
but she can joke about it. And I will tell you my favorite joke that she said afterwards.
Okay.
She got home from the hospital and she looked at me and she said, Dad, with everything I've gone through for the last 2 weeks, I now know what a man feels like when he has the flu. Because man flu is worse than anything out there.
Uh,
Nothing is as bad as when a man has the flu.
that's very true.
And I thought, hey, she's joking about it. That's a good thing. But
Yeah.
yeah.
She must
So
have had some nice nurses in there
oh,
to
her
help.
that whole staff was just incredible. They are the best. I cannot brag on the staff at the burn unit ICU at the hospital there in Aurora.
Well, you definitely have to do it from a passion and empathy and compassion standpoint because
Yeah,
why would you be there otherwise? That's incredible pain that you have to know that you're going through.
yeah, and sometimes people just get overwhelmed, and it's tough to
Yeah.
be in their position. But they were incredible. I will never be never say they did a bad job. They were
Oh,
they were
that's
just
awesome.
they were just amazing, and we were so lucky to they have the staff they have there.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds awesome. Thank goodness. Because how long do you think burn victims take to fully recover, so to
The
speak?
sort of the rule of thumb, if you have no infections and everything goes right, whatever percentage of your body is burned is 1 day. So
So
30% of your body, 30 days, 80%, 80 days. But of course, that's an average, and you can't really, know for certain because everybody's is different.
absolutely, it all takes time and
Yeah,
depends on
and
a whole lot of things.
Yeah, and like if they have to regrow your skin, you're going to be in there longer because it takes longer to regrow your skin. And
How long does that take? Do you know?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Would they have to stay? They'd have to stay in the hospital, and if it took a month or.
Yeah. And so we were lucky because for a couple of reasons. One, she could have dropped the pot in a different way, and she could have been, more
covered
right,
in it.
Exactly. And so we were lucky that way. We were
and her
lucky.
Fabric probably would have started on fire too, and everything.
Yeah, and she was cold that day, and she was wearing 2 hoodies, and so she actually ended up with like 2 levels. So that I think helped a little bit. And then one thing she did was they had to cut her shirt off of her, obviously, but she wouldn't let him throw the shirt away. And there's a Japanese thing, I can never think of the name of it. And it's like if pottery breaks, they put it back together with melted gold. So with her shirt, when she was done, she sewed it back together with yellow thread, doing that Japanese thing as a way of saying, like, I'm healing from this.
Nice.
Which is really cool. She doesn't wear it, obviously, but she did sew it up that way. And that's kind of a cool thing that she did.
You should frame it for sure.
Yeah. And the other way we were lucky is we were able to have a place to stay. Yeah, we had to drive an hour from Colorado Springs to Denver, but a tank of gas is cheaper than a hotel room.
Yes.
And we were lucky, and that is what led to Mars Mission Foundation.
Right. The cost for people.
Yeah, I went on support groups and stuff like that, and it led me to realize I know that you're in, I'm going to try to say this right. My son has brainwashed me. Canada.
Oh.
He always called it Canada. So now I do. I don't know the stats for there, but in the United States, 60% of Americans live a 4+ hour drive from the nearest burn unit. 6 states do not have a burn unit. So if you have a family member that is in a unit, most Americans are going to need a hotel room.
I would say here too. It would only be the major hospitals that would have some sort of clinic like that. Yeah.
And it's probably the same way as it is here in the States. California has more. New York has more. Texas has more. Florida has more. Well, it's because they have the largest cities.
Right.
LA has like 6 burn units. Oklahoma has 1.
Yeah. And I think Vancouver is the only one. I don't know if Kelowna does, which is kind of halfway through BC. But you can imagine all of British Columbia coming to the Vancouver hospital.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's a lot of people. And that's, I don't know, must be almost like a 15-hour drive or something to right up north.
Exactly. And because it's a ICU and whatever, you can't, as a family member, sleep in the room because, a lot of times the couch folds out into a bed or whatever, and you can stay there. You can't do that in the ICU.
Yeah.
So you either get a hotel. Well, that gets costly. The average cost of a hotel in the United States is $212. Now, I know that's the average. It's different in every town. In Oklahoma City, it's $96 a night. In Denver, I think it was $129. But that adds up very, very fast. So what ends up happening is the family members either go home, leaving their loved one by themselves in the ICU.
Suffering.
Right. And it's a scientific fact. People heal faster when their loved ones are with them. But from the loved one's point of view, now you're stressing out because you aren't with your person and you want to be with your person. Or people end up sleeping in their cars.
Oh.
Which is tough. And so I was, my wife and I were talking, and I was just like, are there grants or something somebody can get to help? So I looked around, did all this, and there just wasn't anything out there that would help somebody in that situation. And so that's where this idea for Mars Mission came about. And so I started this foundation. I'm still waiting for the IRS to give me my 501c3 status. That's taken quite a bit of time. And I'm like, please. Because it makes it makes it difficult to go to businesses and fundraise if you
Yes.
don't have the 501c3 status, which is understandable. You don't want to get scammed.
Yes.
And so
And
what we
income
will,
tax wise.
yeah. And so what we're going to do is our goal, we're going to give grants. So if your person is in the burn unit, you can apply and we will give you a grant to offset hotel costs.
Yeah.
If it's 60 days, could we pay for the full 60 days? Probably not at first because we're just not going to have the fundage for that.
Yes.
But if you can stay an extra week, that helps everybody, and that's the best we can do. We are also reaching out to hotels to get a discount code.
That sounds good.
So, right. So if you can pay 50%, 75% of the normal cost, that also grants
That
you
Gives
more
you
time.
that double amount of time that you can stay there.
Exactly. And then we're also, at least here in Oklahoma City, I'm going to go around and see if I can't get discount codes from fast food places that are around the burn
As
unit.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
A package thing.
Yep. And then we have created like a little bag to give to the families, because when you think about it, what's the one thing when you're in a hurry to leave that you forget? Personal hygiene. So we're going to give a bag that has a toothbrush, toothpaste, and floss. Actually, we already have that. My dentist donated that already. And then we're going to have like a pamphlet, and it's going to say, no one's going to tell you this. This is what you need to have when your person gets home. There is a long list of things that we did not know we needed until she got home, and we knew we needed it. So if you could have that there when your person gets home, that takes a lot of stress out.
That's for sure.
And it's not quite a full backup plan, but it's part of the plan on what to do when your person gets home. So there are just so many things. You're going to need a shower chair. You're going to need a non-porous type of shelf for something that they can put the cleaning stuff in. You're going to go through a ton of rubbing alcohol and wipes, because before you go in, you have to clean the bathroom because you want to make sure all the surfaces are clean.
Yeah.
And, so you have to do that. And so that's one of the things that we're going to do for family members. And
that's super nice.
Because it's just things that you need. And our ultimate goal is to have a Ronald McDonald type house where you could actually just stay for free.
Yes.
And that also helps because, if you live 5 hours away and you have to have your skin laser resurfacing surgery and it's on Tuesday, well, if it's at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, you're going there Monday night and you need a hotel.
Yes. And I know we have a Ronald McDonald house here, but it's only for really kids and their family.
Exactly. So, and it doesn't matter. It's just as long as your person is burn survivor related,
right,
you will be able to stay there. And that's our ultimate goal, because that would eliminate so much stress and worry if you knew, hey, I have this place, I can just go and stay here. It has a laundromat in it. I can wash clothes, a little kitchenette. I don't have to go to the fast food. I'm close to the hospital.
Yes. And you're close to the person. Yeah. Do you think, Jack, that jumping into the snow helped her?
Yes, it did, because the moisture from the snow and everything did put the fire out. It was almost like jumping into a pool or something like that.
Yeah.
And
a shock to the body.
And she had actually shoveled the snow earlier because Ellie won't walk on the deck if there's snow on it. So she had to shovel the snow. So she actually had a deeper pile than she would have because of Ellie, which is funny. But yeah, that absolutely helped, because the moisture from the snow immediately put out the fire. And
that's a crazy story. Wow.
Yeah. The funny thing about being 22 is she's in the ER and the nurse comes in and Em looks at her and she's like, so am I going to get to go home tonight? Because she was 22 at the time, and the nurse looks at her and she's like, honey, we're trying to determine if we have to helicopter you to Denver or if you're going by a regular ambulance. We're at that stage. You are not going home for a bit.
I guess with her other medical conditions that she had, she was probably able to go home pretty quickly, I guess. And that's probably what she had in her head.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's also just you're young. And
Yeah.
I think that maybe she didn't want to deal with the fact that it was a lot worse than she realized.
Do they do any stem cell on
I'm not
burns?
sure if they do or not. I'm not sure.
I haven't
I would
heard
assume.
it, but
I
I
would
would think that it'd
assume.
be beneficial. But
And also, as strange as it sounds, the war in Iraq also helped with a lot of burn recovery treatments out of necessity.
in learning how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So her life will be different, but she's alive, and that's the important thing.
that's
And
for sure.
all it, like you said in the opening, all it could have been was 1 second one way or the other, and she could have been burned a lot worse. She could have
Yeah.
died.
Yeah.
And it just takes, like you said, just that split second, and your world changes.
It sure does.
So
A person has a heart attack. It's just that split second.
exactly, someone's not paying attention, and you're in a bad car wreck. So
Yeah.
it
It's pretty
just
scary.
does. It just takes a second, and but yeah, that's sort of a brief part of our story.
Well, that's an awesome foundation, and I commend
you.
all of you to spend time and efforts in creating something that can help other people.
Yeah, thank you for that. It bothered me for months that people were not as lucky as we were.
Yes.
And knowing what she went through, just the thought of someone being alone going through that is overwhelming in a sense.
Yes.
And I could tell you, and I could tell you about it, but it's still not the same.
No.
And I can sort of contrast my father-in-law when he passed away. He was in the ICU for 45 days. I believe it was 45 days. And that was different. We knew because he had cancer. And so we knew there at a point that he was going to pass away. That was tough, but that was different than this. And emotionally, it's so different. And from our standpoint, so I know from the patient standpoint, it's got to just be horrible. And to be by yourself would stink. As the family member, to not be able to be with your person.
To stay there with some,
At least one family member. You know what I mean? Because
right.
then you could get the updates. It helps with everything. And you're not
talking to the doctors and staff.
Right.
And making sure the person's okay.
Yeah. And the point is you want someone to heal and to get better, both from the patient and the family member. And anything we can do to help eliminate some of the stress is what our goal is.
That's right.
When we're able to give out that first grant, I am probably going to bawl like a newborn baby.
Yeah.
when
sure.
We're finally able to do that.
That's going to be ecstatic.
Any people from the IRS, if you're listening, go and approve my foundation so I can start doing that.
That's for sure. Yes. Won't it be exciting? Oh.
Yeah.
Did you see some really bad burn victims?
Not really, because they keep the sort of the curtains closed to the rooms, and I tried not to look just because I felt that was kind of private.
Yeah. But I can just imagine, the things that we don't even see in the real world.
You would hear people in pain from one of the other rooms sometimes.
Oh.
And it was bad.
Oh, geez. And of course, with your backup plan, I talk about that all the time. So when something happens like that, your brain shuts down and you just can't think straight. And that's why it's really important to have a place to go to and stay to alleviate some of that stressful stuff. So you can imagine if she was living on her own and had bills to pay and a mortgage or rent to pay, and that on top of what the stress that you're already dealing with, it's it's just too huge.
Yep.
So that's why I say get prepared so that your stuff's organized in a certain way. And then when something does happen, you are able to spend that personal, on the present time with that survivor to recover.
Yeah. And
Because
just
it's so
imagine,
important.
what if you're in the unit for 90 days and then you get out? Well, you're going to get evicted in that 90 days if you don't have somebody paying
your
your rent.
stuff's going to go out up on the road, like in the
Yeah,
front
your
lawn.
electricity's going to get shut off. Your heat's going to get shut off.
That's
I
right.
can't imagine coming home from the hospital and I don't have a place to live.
Yeah,
So
that's
you're
right.
exactly right. You have to have a family member that can have access, you know, an emergency situation to take care of that stuff.
And it could be a pet too. I've heard that is so often as well, you know, where the pet's left alone and and the person's in the hospital in a coma. So you know, you need someone to go look after the pets or pet. So it's a whole lot of juggling, and it's really tough when you're stressed out with the shock of it all.
Exactly. And I know that beforehand we had talked about, you know, obviously it's the backup plan. Some things you can do as a parent or a homeowner ahead of time that you wanted me to touch on.
Yes, please.
In your kitchen, have a fire extinguisher. It's easy to get to. If you grill constantly, like I do, outside, you know what? Yeah, you may have a fire extinguisher in the kitchen, but you need one closer to that grill because you need to be able to get to it, and saving 10 steps or whatever is, in a fire, very important.
And have a shutoff valve for wherever it's connected to.
Yeah. And if you have a 2-story home, every bedroom upstairs, I'm not talking one bedroom, every bedroom needs the emergency ladder that you can put in the window and get down.
Right.
You have to have that. And even though you can't bust out your window and have your kids do that, you can discuss on a regular basis, hey, if there's a fire, how are you going to set this ladder and get it down? That's something that you need to talk with your children about regularly, is a fire escape plan.
An exit plan, yeah.
Because the once a year firemen coming to talk to the kids at school isn't enough. They need to know it from their unique home, how every home's different. And your kid needs to know, hey, if there's a fire, I have this ladder. This is what I'm going to do to get in there. Have a meeting space outside so that everybody can go to that, you know, meeting space. So you can, you know, do a head count.
Yeah.
And
so you know what you're dealing with.
Exactly. And you need to actually practice fire escape. You know what? Sometime during the summer when the kids don't have school, 2:00 in the morning, set your alarm, get up and go and turn on the smoke alarm. That's the kind of practice that will get your kids' attention. And but in the grand scheme of things, a little bit of annoyance for your kids, but learning how to handle, you know,
an emergency situation,
especially with a fire, because you know, most people don't realize this. In today's world, the materials in your house burn faster. A couch made today burns twice as fast as a couch made in the 70s.
Wow.
Because of the synthetic materials. They just go up like that.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with like the curtains and all of that
your
stuff.
Pajamas.
Yeah. So you actually now have less time to get out of your house than you would have. The fire spreads faster.
And during the holidays, it becomes even bigger.
Yep.
They
trees,
talk about that, you know, candles and Christmas trees and stuff. Yeah. And lights.
Yeah, you got to practice with your kids. I know some people think that I might be overstating this, but you do not want your kid to be burned. You don't want to be burned. You don't want your house to be burned, but a house is easier replaced than a person.
Absolutely. And I think it only makes sense if you do it 2 or 3 or 4 times. Everybody is going to know That's what happens. Like you just know that's the system. That's what you do.
Yep.
Whereas if you've never experienced it, you stand in shock, and before you know it, you don't know what you're doing first or second or third. And so nobody does anything. You just stand and like freeze.
Yeah. Yeah. And even an example, sort of planning, if you have a small dog, for example, that sleeps with one of your kids in that room, have a backpack that they could put the dog in so that when they're going down the ladder, they can take their pet with them. And you may have to work on training your dog to
Go in
be
it.
put in there, but
I'd like to see a Great Dane in that.
that would not happen. As a Great Dane owner, I can testify. That would be a large backpack.
We sure would.
I don't know how I would get mine down. Well, I have a one-story house, but
Well,
I
then
could just
that's
throw
good.
him out the window. But
Yeah, you'd have to hope for the best. Maybe a slide or something, and get them out and
yeah,
slide down.
But yeah, there
But
are just things that you can do to be prepared.
Yeah, time to think
for that.
about things when nothing is wrong, right? That's what I talk about.
And your kids might be annoyed if you wake them up at 2 a.m., but I would rather have an annoyed kid that doesn't have to go through that in the off chance that there's
a problem.
There's a fire. Yeah.
Yes.
And if you're lighting candles for ambiance or whatever, make sure that there's nothing flammable around them.
Yes.
That is another thing. And if you can get like the little battery powered candles, that are the little light things, have those.
I just heard that from a fire chief talking on the news last week, to have the battery operated ones to not make the same problems.
But there are things you can do. Make sure your every daylight. Well, I don't know if you guys have daylight savings up north. If you guys have that monstrosity, but
we do.
I'd change your batteries out in your fire extinguisher every time you do that.
Yes. In everything, I guess it's a thing that you do.
But,
your alarms and everything, So absolutely.
To me, that's your backup plan. Practice. Have the plan.
Have a plan. Practice it.
Do it.
And add whatever you need to for your own family.
Yep. Make sure that your kids know, hey, this is our meeting place over here. And, I get you can't bust out windows, but you can discuss it. And, hey, here's the thing. You're setting up the ladder.
Yeah.
Run downstairs like, okay, you just crawled down from the ladder. And, let's go over here.
Yeah. Or in some houses, they do open, so you could really practice on attaching it and maybe pulling out the screen the day before or something, just so that you could be ready.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
no, awesome. What kind of final message would you like to give the listeners, Jack?
Just like I say, be prepared, have that plan. Know that when you go through, it doesn't have to be fire, but if you do have somebody that has a medical thing, you can get through it. It will be tough. If you feel like the experience is affecting you mentally, talk to somebody. You can't be the person that your loved one needs you to be if you are having issues. And you can still struggle, but if you have somebody to help you through your struggles, you are better able to help the other person. And that's what you want. You want your loved one to heal. You want them to be as mentally well off as they can be.
Mm-hmm.
You want your other family members to be as mentally well off as they can be too. And if you have to talk to somebody that's a professional, talk to somebody. My therapist did such wonders for me. Just without going into some of what you see in that situation, it does affect you.
Yeah, so, absolutely it does.
Talk to somebody, because you need to be the best you can be to help your loved one and other loved ones too, because other people, their siblings might be having issues and you're their parent and they're going to come to you as their parent for help.
And spouse,
so,
you need that ability to be able to survive and be strong.
Yep. Yeah. So
No, that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so
you're
very
welcome.
much for
You're
that.
welcome.
I don't
I
think we talk about it enough, and I think there's a lot more out there than what we actually are aware of.
Yeah, fire is definitely something that is not talked about or in the forefront as it should be.
Yes.
And the burn survivor community is an underserved community as it is, but the families of burn survivors are even more underserved.
Yes.
And if I could help, 1 week paying for a hotel or 20 people a year, whatever it is, I want to do that because would I have rather M not been on fire? Of course.
Yeah.
But can I make something positive come out of this? Yeah, I think I can.
Yeah.
And even though the thought of doing it terrifies me because I have severe ADHD and I'm in charge of this, you know, but I, I
It's
just,
exciting too.
I just want to help people, even if it's a little bit in that
Yeah.
horrible situation.
And Jack's information is down in the description box below. You just press on more in the description in the first sentence, and you'll get a drop down of a description and his information. And you can, if you know of anybody that you have suffered a burn situation, or your family member or family friend, comment down below. It might help others that are watching this as well. We
Yeah.
would appreciate that. And any comments we get, I will make sure Jack gets them if you aren't sending it directly to him.
Thank you. And can I mention the website though, real quick?
Yes,
it is
please.
marsmissionfoundation.org. If you go to it, we kind of have just a temporary website up because we didn't want to have the full thing until we actually got our IRS or our 501c3 status approved.
Right.
So really all you can do is go on there. It gives
And
a little
look.
rundown of the family, and then you can donate via PayPal or Cash App. Because we still have, we still need to raise money. I understand at this point you wouldn't get the tax write-off, but we would certainly love any donation so we can get ahead, because there are some, organizational expenses that we have.
Or to even send your name and email address, so when it does become available, you could choose to do it then even. I mean, anything.
Yeah, don't quote me on this, but I believe that if you donate after the application is submitted, that it does become a write-off on your taxes, because I have been told, I do not know if this is true, don't quote me, that it's backdated to the day it was submitted.
Oh, okay.
So
we'll figure it out some way for anybody
Yes.
that wants to, right?
Yes.
And we'll put you on there so that you can reach out to Jack and find out for yourself. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are suffering with the same situation. And it's just not talked about enough, to be prepared for that, especially. And that being said, we're not Superman, even though we think we are, and nothing's ever going to happen. Right, Jack? I think men are really bad at that. Like, they just think, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
For some reason. But as you know, it's far from the truth, because something always seems to. And, we look at the world around us just in the last 5 years. There's shootings in the schools and the shootings in the streets and work accidents and car accidents and overdoses and the pandemic and the crazy wars that we're dealing with. And then all of the natural disasters that are around the world, we can't take lightly. Wildfires in the British Columbia region and Australia have gone up tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
California wildfires are nothing to shake a stick at, that's for sure. And people are losing their pets, and they lose family members, and they think that they can survive it and stay there, or whatever it might be. And the story sometimes does not go the way you want it to. So we just want to have a plan in place so that you can escape easily and prepared, and have some strength to be able to get through. Perhaps it's losing your whole house. That's just enough stress all on its own. without people being injured. You
Yep.
know, that's enough to deal with. So thank you for your suggestions of being better prepared and your story. I appreciate it so much, Jack, to kind of get the story out there to people.
I appreciate you having me on. I just feel it's something that's very important. People need to know, hey, this can happen. For me to tell, I have to tell her story and our story, though, to explain why the foundation is needed.
That's right.
And so I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk about the foundation and talk about our family story and what has happened. And I just really appreciate it. I'm very thankful.
You're welcome. I appreciate it too, because we don't talk enough about fire in general.
Mm-hmm.
We really don't. It's like a secret, you know? And
yeah.
It's really scary. I'm not really sure which is scarier, water or fire, but I know both of them are horrible. So I'm not sure, because the strength of water is just crazy too.
That is also true. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're thinking of that special someone right now watching the show, reach out to them and talk to them, call them. We still have phones, knock on the door, FaceTime, and whatever it takes, because you don't know what tomorrow might bring. And that being said, I always end our show with Carol Burnett, and I know Jack knows who Carol Burnett is.
I am of that age.
Although I can't sing, but I love what she is all about. I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just get started, and before you know it, comes a time we have to say so long. So long, everybody. I appreciate you watching. I hope that we've changed somebody's life, even in a little tiny bit, to be better prepared and to understand the situations and what happens when, you know, not so much that you're not prepared, but that you can maybe save more of a person or more of yourself in a situation. And that's what we're all about. So thank you, Jack, for coming on. I appreciate it, and listeners. And Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan till you get punched in the mouth. And it's very true. You think you're prepared, but you're really not. So maybe take some of Jack's notes that he mentioned to us, his tips, and put them into a plan and get it going today or tomorrow. But don't wait too long. So thank you, Jack. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story. And thank you, listeners. Until next time, stay safe.
Bye, listeners.
Stay safe and be kind. Till next time. Bye.